So, Leonardo DiCaprio and Paul Thomas Anderson, two of the most respected names in cinema, just made a critically acclaimed masterpiece about political revolution that's on track to lose Warner Brothers $100 million. And somehow that's the good news. Welcome to Frameshift, where we watch capitalism eat itself and try to figure out if it's performance art or just art that nobody performed for. Let me set the scene. It's 2025. Warner Brothers is having, and I cannot stress this enough, an incredible year. They dropped 7 films in a row that each made over $40 million opening weekend. 7. That's not a streak, that's a dynasty. A Minecraft movie became the highest grossing film of the year. Superman flew. Sinners sinned successfully, I assume. The studio was basically printing money, like they found the cheat code to capitalism. And then came one battle after another. Now, according to Variety, and Warner Brothers really wants you to know these are anonymous sources and uninformed estimates, which is corporate speak for how dare you be right in public. This Paul Thomas Anderson film starring Leonardo DiCaprio is projected to lose around $100 million. The production budget was $130 million. Marketing was another $70 million. And here's the kicker. The break-even point sits at about $300 million because, you know, you have to split the box office with theatre owners, and Leo typically gets first dollar gross on his movies. First dollar gross, meaning Leonardo DiCaprio gets paid from the very first ticket sold before the studio recoups anything, which, look, respect the hustle truly, but it does mean that Warner Brothers is essentially funding a $200 million art film where one of the world's biggest movie stars gets paid whether the film makes money or not. It's like commissioning the Sistine Chapel, except Michelangelo also gets a percentage of church donations forever. The film opened to $22 million domestically, which, fun fact, is actually a career high for Paul Thomas Anderson, the man who made There Will Be Blood and The Master, films we all pretend to have watched at parties. Just had his biggest opening ever, and it's still a catastrophic commercial failure by Warner Brothers standards this year, because context matters when your previous 7 films averaged, I don't know, making money, and then your expensive prestige picture comes in at $22 million. That's like being on a hot streak in Vegas and then betting the house on a hand of poker where the cards are incredibly well-composed shots of human suffering. Now, Warner Brothers issued a statement. They refute Variety's anonymous sources and point out that their films have achieved financial reward in 2025 with more than $4 billion earned to date. And Variety, bless them, added a tiny note. That $4 billion figure refers to box office revenue, not profits, which is such a perfect distillation of Hollywood accounting that I want to get it tattooed on my body. We made $4 billion. Well, no, we collected $4 billion. We made less, possibly negative dollars, but doesn't $4 billion sound impressive? It's like your friend saying they're crushing it financially because $10,000 went through their bank account this month, but $12,000 went out. Technically, money moved. That's movement. Here's where it gets philosophically fascinating, though. The film is an R-rated drama about political revolution. It stars one of the most bankable actors alive. It's directed by a living legend, and by all accounts, it's a masterpiece. Critics are calling it one of the best films of the decade. It became an Oscar frontrunner immediately. People who've seen it describe it in hushed, reverent tones like they've witnessed something transcendent. And America collectively shrugged and went to see a Minecraft movie again, which, no shade to Minecraft, that movie made bank. Kids dragged their parents dragged their inner children. It was a cultural moment, but there's something deeply, darkly funny about a year where a film based on digital blocks outperforms a meditation on human revolution by a factor of, I don't even know the math, honestly, a lot. We live in a time where the idea of art is valuable, but experiencing art is optional. And here's the thing, Warner Brothers knows this. The Variety piece mentions that one battle after another is valuable to the company in ways beyond the balance sheet. Translation, we're going to lose money, but we'll win Oscars. And that's something, right? Right? Because prestige matters. Being the studio that houses the best picture winner, that's branding gold. That's the film equivalent of owning a vineyard that loses money but makes you look cultured at dinner parties. You're not profitable, but you're distinguished. And honestly, there's something almost noble about that. In a year where every other studio is chasing franchises and cinematic universes and IP like their lives depend on it, because financially they do, Warner Brothers looked at a Paul Thomas Anderson script about political revolution and said, yeah, let's give this man $130 million and Leonardo DiCaprio. That's not a business decision, that's patronage, that's Medici level. We have so much money we can afford to fund Genius, even if Genius doesn't sell Happy Meals. Except, they can't really afford it, hence the $100 million loss. But wait, there's a silver lining, sort of. The film has staying power. It could make money for years to come through various physical media releases, theatrical re-releases, and streaming rights. Which means in 2035, when someone's scrolling through Max or whatever we're calling it by then, they might stumble upon one battle after another between episodes of The Office and think, I've heard of this, and press play. And Warner Brothers will make like 6 cents. Capitalism is a marathon, not a sprint. A very, very slow marathon where you might finish in the red, but at least you looked good running. There's also the Leo factor. Leonardo DiCaprio, first dollar gross king, gets paid no matter what. And you know what? Maybe that's how it should be. The man has been one of the most consistent box office draws for decades. He's earned the right to take a paycheck for a 3-hour art film about revolution that makes everyone feel deeply uncomfortable, because that's the other thing. This is a hard movie. It's not Inception where you can debate the ending over brunch. It's not Titanic where you ugly cry and feel cathartic. It's Paul Thomas Anderson doing what Paul Thomas Anderson does, holding up a mirror to the human condition and asking, so, what are you going to do about it? And America collectively said, I'm going to go see if there's a Minecraft sequel announced yet. Here's where I get a little sincere, and I apologise in advance. Behind the jokes, this is actually kind of sad. Not because a studio is losing money. Corporations will be fine, they always are. But because we're living through a moment where one of the greatest filmmakers alive made one of the best films in years, and it's being discussed primarily in terms of financial loss. Not artistic achievement, not cultural impact, not, holy shit, did you see that scene where... No, we're talking about balance sheets, and maybe that's always been true. Maybe Hollywood has always been a business first and an art form second, but it feels especially bleak right now, doesn't it? In a year where a Minecraft movie, again, no shade, can make hundreds of millions, but a film about human revolution struggles to break even, it says something about where we are. What we want, what we're willing to pay attention to, we'd rather watch blocks than revolutions. Of course, Warner Brothers is going to campaign hard for Oscar season. They'll plaster one battle after another across every trade publication. They'll host screenings. They'll remind voters that this is important cinema, and maybe it'll win Best Picture. And then what? Does that justify the $100 million loss? Does a gold statue balance the books? Depends on who you ask. A studio executive? Probably not. An artist? Maybe. A film historian in 2050 looking back at the movies that mattered? Almost certainly, because here's the uncomfortable truth. The films we remember are rarely the ones that made the most money. Citizen Kane was a box office disappointment. The Shawshank Redemption flopped in theatres. Blade Runner bombed, and now they're considered masterpieces. So maybe one battle after another, losing $100 million in 2025 doesn't matter. Maybe in 20 years people will watch it and think, how did we not see this in theatres? How did we let this happen? And the answer will be because we were busy, because it was hard, because Minecraft was easier. Warner Brothers will survive. They had a great year otherwise. Leonardo DiCaprio will be fine. He's getting paid regardless. Paul Thomas Anderson will make another film in 7 years that 17 people will see opening weekend, and everyone will call a masterpiece. The system works, sort of, in the most depressing way possible. But hey, at least we got one studio willing to lose $100 million on art. In 2025, that's basically a revolutionary act in itself, which, given the film's subject matter, is either perfectly ironic or the saddest thing I'll say all week. Anyway, that's today's episode of Frameshift, where the world mutates faster than we can keep up, and sometimes the best art costs the most money to ignore. Thanks for listening. Go watch one battle after another if you can, or don't. Either way, Leonardo DiCaprio is getting paid. See you next time.